Nearly 1 year after Jujutsu Kaisen ended, Gege Akutami did something nobody expected, but not with a continuation or a prequel, but a sequel series set 68 years in the future, which features aliens. And somehow, against all odds, it works. Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo launched in September of 2025 in Weekly Shonen Jump, and it's written by Gege Akutami with art by Yuji Iwasaki. And for good reason, it's been one of the most talked about manga in the community ever since. This is a 6-month serialization that spans roughly 3 volumes. We are 22 chapters deep into Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. We've managed to build an entirely new cast of characters while still honouring everything that came before it. If you've been meaning to pick up Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo or you started it and got lost somewhere along the way, this video is your one-stop guide. I'm going to walk you through everything from chapter 1, covering the full story, the new characters, the lore, and the connections back to the original series. The aim of this video is to give you a complete understanding of where this story stands right now so that you can jump into the weekly discussion fully up to speed. So without further delay, this is my video breaking down everything that you need to know about Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. This new series is set in the year 2086. Sukuna was defeated 68 years ago. The current game is ancient history, and a mothership called the Naunax, carrying nearly 50,000 extraterrestrial refugees known as the Simurians, appears 30,000 meters above Nevada in the United States. They are seeking a new home. This is where things get really interesting. The US does not deal with the Simurians directly. Instead, they delegate all diplomatic authority to Japan, and the reason is straightforward. The Simurians possess powers remarkably similar to Jujutsu sorcery. Japan, being the only nation with an established Jujutsu society, becomes the very first point of contact with an alien civilization. This immediately sets the tone for the entire series. Modulo is a story about diplomacy, coexistence, cultural friction, and two civilizations trying to figure out whether they can live alongside each other without tearing each other apart. Our main characters are Yuka and Tsurugi Okkotsu, the grandchildren of Yuta Okkotsu and Maki Zenin. And we have the Simurian liaison, who is sent to live amongst the Jujutsu sorcerers so that they can assess whether if humans are worth coexisting with. The liaison is a young alien named Maru Valvol Yelvori, or Maru for short. Chapter 1 of Modulo is a massive 54-page opening that does a brilliant job of establishing the world and a new cast of characters. We open with a flashback to 2076, 10 years before the main story. A 6-year-old Yuka is spending time with her grandfather Yuta, who gives her his treasured ring. He tells her the ring will protect her until she becomes a Jujutsu sorcerer, and Yuka vows to make that happen. 4 years later, Yuta passes away, and at his funeral, Yuka silently reaffirms her promise. But then her mother intervenes. She orders Yuka to give the ring to Surugi, claiming it is a cursed object registered under the Gojo clan, and that only Surugi is worthy of wielding it. Yuka confronts her brother demanding the ring back, and he tells her that it was not his decision. She attacks him and loses immediately, and from that point on, Yuka channels all her frustration into training, determined to grow strong enough to one day reclaim what she believes is rightfully hers. And here is what makes this dynamic so much more painful. The manga also shows us Tsurugi's perspective via a flashback. At 7 years old, Tsurugi spent time with his grandmother Maki Zenin, who told him he resembled her, both of them capable of becoming stronger through loss, though she warned him that kind of strength was double-edged. After Yuta gave the ring to Yuka, Tsurugi told Maki he wished he had one too. She reassured him that he did not need a protective charm because he was already strong. But after Yuta died and the Gojo clan forced the ring onto Tsurugi, he protested. He told his mother that he did not need it. She coldly replied that his wishes were irrelevant. It was a clan decision. Tsurugi ran away in tears, swearing to grow stronger and prove that he never needed the ring. He never wanted it, and he has been carrying the guilt of taking it from Yuka ever since. Fast forward to the present day in 2086, Usami, the acting minister of foreign affairs for the Jujutsu world, briefs a now 17-year-old Surugi and 16-year-old Yuka on their latest mission. Citizens have been disappearing across Kyoto. It appears as though they have been abducted and used as energy sources. The pair are assigned to investigate alongside Maru, who is introduced as a foreign inspector tasked with evaluating the capabilities of Japanese sorcerers as a part of the security treaty. Yuka is immediately suspicious of him since cursed energy is unique to the Japanese people, so a foreigner being a sorcerer is basically unheard of. What she is unaware of is that Maru is secretly judging whether human sorcerers are worthy of coexisting with the Simurians. What follows is a very charming dynamic. Yuka and Tsurugi run off in separate directions and just leave Maru behind. He stands there alone until Yuka eventually comes back for him and she ends up buying him takoyaki, which he devours while crying tears of joy. It's a small moment, but it tells you everything about Maru as a character. Meanwhile, Yuka demonstrates her investigative skills by detecting a gaze manipulation curse embedded in the roads of Kyoto. It's designed to subtly guide children toward a kidnapping barrier. Surugi also picks up on the barrier independently, showing us that both siblings are genuinely skilled. As they seal off the barrier's entry point, a young boy suddenly runs past them into the alleyway. Massive hands emerge from the darkness, seizing the boy and teleporting him away. The curse user had integrated spatial transference into the barrier technique. Tsurugi prepares to pursue, ordering Yuka and Maru to report to Usami, but the hands reappear behind him and teleport him away too, leaving behind only his katana. Yuka figures out why. The barrier was designed to repel sorcerers with high cursed energy, but Tsurugi has a heavenly restriction. He cannot use cursed energy to fight and relies entirely on cursed tools, which means the barrier treated him like a non-sorcerer and pulled him in. Maru convinces a reluctant Yuka to rescue her brother instead of just reporting in, arguing that she would regret not reconciling with him if he died. Using his harmony technique, which brings a person into harmony with the world and identifies their equal, Maru locates Surugi by using Yuka as the anchor. They find him restrained in the curse user's talisman-covered warehouse, where children have been sealed inside airtight plastic containers for sale on the human trafficking market. The fight that follows gives us our first real look at what these siblings can do. Yuka activates Savage Jaw Strike, enveloping her hands in jagged cursed energy that lengthens and sharpens her fingernails, and it slashes the curse user across his arm. The man retaliates by teleporting around the room using the talismans on the walls. Surugi calls for his katana and draws Honoyagi, a curse tool that generates sparks from its scabbard and guard in order to ignite its blade. He unleashes Bato Sword Drawing, which releases a wave of fire that burns away every talisman in the room. With his teleportation gone, Yuka closes in and finishes him with Biting Twist. After confirming that the children are alive, Tsurugi commends Yuka for growing stronger and promises to work harder so he can one day return her ring. Yuka, caught off guard by his sincerity, does not know how to respond. But before she can question him, the curse user wakes up and activates his barrier technique in the children's room, attempting to transfer them away. Maru reveals his third eye with a single glance. He instantly knocks the man unconscious. Yuka and Tsurugi stare in disbelief, demanding to know if he is an alien. Maru's secret is out as the story of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo truly begins. The second chapter shifts to the political side of the story, and this is where Modulo starts establishing itself as more than just a battle manga. Usami and Mino arrive at the Kyoto Museum of Emergency Science and Innovation for a formal meeting with the Simurian envoys. Mino is nervous, worried about quarantine protocols and infectious diseases, but Usami knows that treating aliens with suspicion from the outset is a fast track to war. The Simurians arrive. Jabaloma, the diplomatic envoy, introduces himself, and Cross, a dispatch officer. Both speak fluent Japanese, which catches the humans off guard. Mino is furious because the US had pressed Japan for intelligence on alien technology, but never bothered to mention that the Simurians already spoke Earth languages. Usami suspects that the Americans withheld this deliberately, retaliation for Japan's refusal to cooperate since the signing of the Kyoto Paranormal Resolution. Then Jabaloma asks if a third representative may join them. He warns them that this individual is extremely dangerous even even when unarmed, and he wants to assure them of his peaceful intentions. When Dabura enters the room, both Usami and Mino are overwhelmed by the sheer weight of his presence. After the meeting, a visibly shaken Mino nervously asks if he is even still alive. Usami confirms that Dabura alone could conquer Japan single-handedly, and that the Simurians were deliberately flexing their deterrence. Usami makes the controversial decision to assign the Okkotsu siblings to work alongside Maru. Mino objects, arguing that they are too young, but Usami believes that true harmony between humans and Simurians can only be achieved through the openness of youth rather than the rigidity of adult diplomacy. He refuses to let Japan repeat the mistakes of isolationism. Meanwhile, Yuka and Tsurugi investigate the curse user's claims about aliens. They interrogate him under a false pretense and learn that the Naunaks will land in the Kurumayama highlands to resupply, thus temporarily weakening its concealment. The siblings travel to Nagano, and at 8 PM the mothership materializes above them. Staring at the colossal vessel, both Yuka and Tsurugi reaffirm their resolve to become as strong as their grandparents. Back on the ship, Maru reconnects with Cross, his twin brother. Cross orders Maru to keep surveilling the sorcerers. Maru pushes back, arguing that humans and Simurians are alike. Both are capable of good and evil. Cross dismisses this entirely, claiming human morality is meaningless unless it aligns with Simurian values. He reveals that Simurian opinion is currently split between those who favor war and those who favor coexistence. Maru tries to invite Cross to breakfast the next day, but Cross refuses. The third chapter of Modulo sends the trio to Gifu to exorcise a cursed spirit in the shape of a man-eating shark. This is bizarre because Gifu is landlocked. The shark is swimming through forests. During the mission, Tsurugi and Maru are paired together, and their conversation takes a sharp turn. Tsurugi accuses the Simurians of being behind the strange incidents cropping up across Japan. Maru snaps back offended. He reveals that the Simurians did not leave their home willingly, but refuses to elaborate. Tsurugi also calls Maru out for not intervening earlier during the kidnapping case when he clearly had the power to end it instantly. Maru explains that his superiors forbade him from using his abilities, and the reason runs deeper than simple orders. His curse technique is shared with his twin brother Cross, and overusing it would alert Cross, thus causing his twin brother to trust humans even less. After the mission, Maru confides in Tsurugi that he genuinely wants to be friends, inspired by the parallel between a rescued tiger cub and the Simurians' own struggle for a place to belong. Tsurugi hands the cub to a local sorcerer and tells him to raise it well. His words bring a genuine smile to Maru's face. Chapter 4 introduces a strange investigation, but it also plants an important seed. Usami formally informs the siblings that Maru is an alien, though neither is surprised given what they saw. The intelligence embargo on Simurians has been lifted, but Usami quietly pulls Tsurugi aside and tasks him with secretly observing Maru, suspecting the Simurians' true goal is to gather intelligence on Jujutsu. Tsurugi reluctantly agrees. The mission itself involves a bizarre case at Shuer Elementary. A first grader has been repeating his grade for 3 consecutive years under slightly different names: Masayoshi, Masaaki, and Masaki. Same face every single year. These sorcerers suspect that a curse user is impersonating children and murdering families. Tsurugi and Maru track the boy down after school. When confronted, Masaki panics and runs. A cursed spirit suddenly appears to protect him, blocking their attacks but making no move to harm the boy. Tsurugi recognizes it as a Shikigami or a guardian spirit. Maru identifies it as a Kalyan, the first time that word is used to describe something on Earth. The boy breaks down crying and tells them a sad story about losing his mother, claiming her spirit is protecting him. Maru, sympathizing deeply, shares his belief that the pain of losing a home can be overcome when someone becomes your neighbor, a friend who understands why your feelings matter. It is a genuinely touching moment, but then Yuka calls. She has found 5 bodies buried at the real Masaki Takeda's house. The boy that they have been consoling is not a child at all. Tsurugi Tsurugi turns just as Maru is struck unconscious. The boy rips the skin from his face, revealing an elderly man beneath. His curse technique, Marmalade Boy, allows him to transform anything using human skin as fabric. He has been wearing the faces of children in order to hide among them for years, as now the real fight begins. The confrontation with Masaki Takeda is where the story really picks up the intensity. Surugi engages the elderly curse user and quickly realizes that the man is far more skilled than expected. During a brief pause in the fighting, Surugi asks if Masaki ever considered using her powers for good. The old man admits that he once did, but says that kind of idealism belongs to the young. He confesses that he fell in love with the feelings and memories of being a first grader and just wants to stay as one forever. Surugi recognizes that the root of the entire case is the old man's senility. Surugi opens a simple domain and activates Maculation, gaining the upper hand against Masaki and his Shikigami's coordinated attacks. He strikes the curse user hard enough to send him crashing into Shuer Elementary below. When Yuka arrives, she ambushes Masaki from behind with biting twist, and the siblings team up, their seamless coordination overwhelming both Masaki and the guardian spirit in tandem. But the curse user has one last trick. He emerges from within his Shikigami and ambushes them, launching needles that incapacitate both Yuka and Tsurugi. Because of his Marmalade Boy technique, the siblings had actually been fighting a disguised portion of the Shikigami wearing Masaki's skin the entire time. The real Masaki was hiding inside the guardian spirit, waiting for them to exhaust themselves. With both siblings down, Maru's third eye opens on its own while he is still unconscious back at Masaki's house, and he enters a berserker state. Chapter 6 is where we truly see what Maru is capable of. While unconscious, his third eye takes over and his curse technique goes haywire. Debris floats, electronic equipment malfunctions, pool water turns scalding hot and then freezes solid around Masaki in midair. Tsurugi realizes that Maru's technique distorts the natural laws of order itself. Watching from a rooftop, Cross observes the chaos and makes a calculated decision not to intervene. In his mind, Maru injuring or killing an innocent human like Tsurugi would give the pro-war faction the justification they need for open conflict. Tsurugi manages to intercept Maru's finishing blow with Honoyagi, though the sheer impact blasts both him and Masaki away. Cross eventually scolds his brother to rein in his power, and in the aftermath, Usami arrives to incapacitate Masaki using cursed speech. Cross then interrogates Tsurugi about how he learned the word neighbors, furious that Maru had shared Simurian concepts with humans. He declares that Simurians and humans could never truly understand one another. This exchange is critical because it shows us just how far apart the two brothers are ideologically. Maru believes coexistence is possible. Cross sees it as a delusion. Chapter 7 is a turning point for Cross as a character, with Maru badly injured and transported for medical treatment after the Masaki incident. Cross takes his brother's eye patch, impersonates him, and continues accompanying Yuka and Tsurugi. Nobody notices at first, as the group visits an amusement park that Maru had always wanted to see, and Cross begrudgingly tags along. A small, quiet moment stands out. A boy's balloon almost floats away and Cross catches it. The boy starts crying for his mother and Cross scolds him for crying when his mother is still alive. It makes the child cry harder. Frustrated, Cross performs acrobatics to cheer the kid up, drawing applause from strangers. It's a genuinely touching scene which highlights all of the grief that is underneath Cross's hostility. Later, Yuka reveals that she has known Cross was posing as Maru the entire time. Their conversation shifts to faith, religion, and what these Simurians have lost. Cross accuses shallow-minded people like Yuka of having trampled on the Simurians' way of life and warns her to prepare for retribution. Yuka, unfazed, invites him somewhere the next morning. They visit a hospital for Yuka's checkup, where she learns that she has a malignant brain tumor with only 6 months left to live. Crossing a river afterwards, Cross remarks that Yuka's future was stolen by her illness, just as the Simurians' future was taken from them. Yuka uses this shared pain to plead for coexistence, insisting that humans are not the Simurians' enemy. Cross dismisses it as idealistic nonsense. Coexisting with humans would just mean living quietly under their rule, restraining themselves to avoid conflict. He would rather keep stealing than live like that. But when Yuka asks him how long he plans to keep stealing, Cross has no answer. She tells him that hating others and taking from them is easy, and in the end it just perpetuates an endless cycle, as she turns around and offers to help him end it. Chapters 8 and 9 are a flashback arc told from Cross's perspective, and they are critical for understanding the Simurians' entire backstory. Cross and Maru's village on their home planet Simuria was destroyed by the Deskunte tribe's government. Their parents were crushed to death beneath their collapsing home. As their father died, he clutched an ordinary rock as if it were precious, an act that confused Cross deeply. The twins were captured and jailed for stealing. A Simurian named Dura reluctantly agreed to look after them. Dura was building a canal to connect the Rumelian and Diskunte territories, believing that it could serve as a gesture of peaceful coexistence. Cross could not fathom why they would help the people who destroyed their home. Dura explained that the canal would also benefit the Rumelians by making the land more fertile and providing cleaner water. Even when the tribe of Rumelians opposed to his ideals sabotaged the construction, Dura continued working without hesitation. Tragedy strikes in Chapter 9 as the Diskunte chief's daughter was killed by a Kalyan. The chief blamed the Rumelian tribe, demanding 90% of their territory including the canal as compensation. The Diskunte challenged the Rumelians to a duel, their traditional method of settling disputes. Dura accepted on behalf of his people. On the day of the duel, the Diskunte champion turned out to be Dabura, who was being forced to fight because the Diskuntes were holding his daughter hostage. Dura spoke to the crowd, revealing that the Diskuntes had invaded Rumelian territory a decade ago, not for religious reasons, but to seize their Mul resources. Mul is a special, valuable ore found on Simuria. It's an ore that's capable of converting cursed energy into all forms of energy. Dura begged the audience to treat the Rumelians as neighbors, but then the duel began and Dabura killed him. In the aftermath, Maru attempted to attack Dabura, but Cross held him back. Dabura explained that he had held back during the fight because he did not want to damage Dura's face. The Rumelians later learned that Dura and Dabura had been best friends. Dabura then led the Rumelians to a pit filled with an enormous quantity of Mul that Dura had unearthed during the canal construction. When Maru touched the high purity Mul, it responded to his cursed energy. Using both his and Cross's techniques in tandem, they shaped the Mul into the spacecraft Naunax. Dabura asked to join them. Having promised Dura that he would protect the Rumelian tribe, Maru declared that they would search for their neighbors beyond the sky. Chapter 10 of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo shows us two parallel political perspectives. On the human side, a committee of Jujutsu sorcerers reviews footage of Maru's berserker fight with Masaki. A committee member named Yakumaru agrees that Maru's attempt to harm Surugi should classify all Simurians as threats under Article 7 of the Jujutsu regulations. This alarms Mino because Usami had actually ordered him to delete the footage of Maru and Surugi fighting, but Usami stays calm. He reveals that their clash was legal under the Hakari provision, a rule that allows contracted sorcerers to engage in paid combat. Usami had already anticipated complications and preemptively made Maru a contracted sorcerer, thus legitimizing the entire incident before it could become a diplomatic catastrophe. When another committee member demands that they locate Yuji Itadori as a deterrent against the Simurians, Usami rebukes them sharply, criticizing anyone who would endanger both Japan and humanity by escalating tensions. On the Simurian side, aboard the Naunax, a second vote is held on whether to pursue war or coexistence with humans. Osuki, a hot-headed Rumelian, is eager for invasion. Cross meets with Jabaloma, who reveals he will vote alongside Cross. Together, their combined 20 votes overturn the pro-war majority. The final result result is coexistence wins. Initial plans include diplomatic discussions and cultural exchanges with Japan. Chapter 11 features a bit of a lighter tone as diplomatic relations warm. Usami and Mino learn that the Naonex is powered by cursed energy, which raises immediate concerns, because if that information leaked, Japanese people could become targets for kidnapping all over again. They decide to keep it confidential. Surugi and Maru are sent to acquire a rare wancha octopus for a takoyaki party that Yuka is organizing as a part of the cultural exchange. Both boys dive through jellyfish-infested waters to prove themselves, surfacing covered in stings and competing over whose catch was bigger. During the exchange, Maru explains Rumelian culture to Surugi. Warriors are their equivalent of Jujutsu sorcerers, but only men can wield Rololuka, their version of cursed energy. Meanwhile, Yuka secretly takes medication for her brain tumor, and Cross catches her doing it. She asks him not to tell Surugi because she wants their relationship to remain unchanged. Chapter 12 is where things start to fall apart. The trio are on a mission to maintain Tokyo's curse-warding barriers, and through this mission we learn critical world building. After the culling game, the Japanese government publicized the existence of cursed spirits while falsely claiming they only appeared in Tokyo. The former capital is now overrun with curses and is known as the inhuman Makio. Barriers must be constantly maintained to prevent cursed energy from leaking outward, and when those barriers are at their most vulnerable, a scheduled mass exorcism called the Great Purification Ritual is performed in order to keep the cursed population in check. During this maintenance mission, Yuka explains to Maru how the barriers work, and Maru expresses admiration for Jujutsu sorcerers who choose to protect people, unlike Rumelian warriors whose roles are determined at birth by their village Kalyan. Inside Tokyo itself, a senior Jujutsu sorcerer named Yakumaru enters a building to clear cursed spirits and discovers an abnormal concentration of low-grade curses all drawn towards something. Following their trail, Yakumaru and his junior enter a hallway and are shocked to find Osuki, a Simurian, calmly interacting with a cursed spirit. Meanwhile, Elder Boro aboard the Naonex has witnessed the exorcism of cursed spirits through his third eye and interpreted it as Japanese murdering Kalyans. Cross informs Usami that some Simurians are now insisting the Japanese are killing their sacred beings. The crisis point has arrived. Cursed spirits and Kalyans are fundamentally the same thing, and the very act of exorcising them is, from the Simurian perspective, the act of killing gods. Chapter 13 is where the situation spirals beyond anyone's control. Cross is shot twice by Yakumaru, who mistook him reaching into his clothes as drawing a weapon. The standoff erupts, and when Dabura arrives in Tokyo, his overwhelming presence alone is enough to intimidate every sorcerer assembled. While some Simurians rush Cross away for treatment, others accuse Earth of exterminating Kalyans. Yakumaru protests that they only killed cursed spirits. Dabura instantly appears in front of him, towering over the sorcerer, and demands to know if he was the one who shot Cross. Before anyone can react, Dabura destroys Yakumaru's right arm. Usami uses cursed speech to restrain Dabura, but the recoil is catastrophic, and here is the key detail that explains why. Miyaguni later reveals that Usami used his technique against a calamity whose strength cannot be measured by the standard sorcerer ranking system. A grade 1 sorcerer using cursed speech against something that far beyond the grading system shredded him from the inside out. His throat is destroyed as he is spitting blood, and he collapses. But even while going down, Usami apologizes and pleads for another chance at peace. Dabura, believing Cross is going to die, threatens to kill Usami's subordinates in retaliation. Usami begs Dabura to take his life instead, and it is that willingness to sacrifice himself for peace that reminds Dabura of Jura. It is the only reason that he spares them. The aftermath unfolds over weeks as the Simurians formally demand Japan cease all cursed spirit exorcisms. Jujutsu headquarters knows that this is impossible because the barrier holding curses inside Tokyo can only last for about a month. They agree to a temporary suspension. In December, sorcerers secretly resume nighttime exorcisms to keep the cursed population from overwhelming, but Osuki hears the dying cries of cursed spirits from aboard the Naonax above Tokyo, and his third eye weeps. When Dabura orders him to stop listening, Osuki lashes out, accusing Dabura of being unable to understand Rumelian suffering because as a Disconte he cannot hear the voices of Kalyans. Dabura accepts the accusation without any argument. As another month passes, stronger curses manifest due to the winter season, and sorcerer casualties reach unprecedented levels from the covert exorcisms. While the Rumelians discover Japan's non-compliance, they demand the annexation of Tokyo to establish their own nation dedicated to protecting cursed spirits. Japan refuses. Miyaguni insists that only Yuji Itadori could stand against Dabura, but Mino plays a recording from an elderly Nobara Kugisaki who reveals that Yuji vanished after Hana Kurusu's funeral. He became immortal, burdened by an endless lifespan. He cannot be found. Miyaguni reveals they have only one final option. In January of 2087, Dabura formally challenges Japan to a duel. Japan selects Yuka Okkotsu as its champion, as she accepts the call. On the day of the duel, Mino asks Miyaguni if she truly intends to send a terminally ill girl against Dabura. Miyaguni replies that Yuka is their only option. The combined forces of the Japanese military and the US armed forces would be insufficient. Also, no country wants to deploy nuclear weapons on Japanese soil again, and the UN has implicitly suggested Japan build and use its own. Maru reflects on his strained relationship with Cross. After their village was destroyed, Cross gave Maru a stone that their father had clutched at death, believing that it was Mull. Maru recognized it was just an ordinary rock and smashed it, then berated their late father in front of Cross to make him forget. That lie drove a wedge between the brothers that never healed. Meanwhile, Surugi wanders through an abandoned building, piecing together inconsistencies in the Simurian story. Simurian society bears no resemblance to a modern Earth nation, yet the Simurians themselves are strikingly similar to humans, and the Rumelians somehow constructed a spacecraft capable of transporting 50,000 people despite having primitive technology. Surugi locates Maru and confronts him directly. She says his theory that the Naonax was constructed from Mull, the mineral that responds to cursed energy, and that Maru's curse technique was used in conjunction with it to transport the Simurians through space. Maru corrects him on one point. The Naonax was built using the high purity Mull left behind by Jura, and it requires both his and Cross's techniques working in tandem. Surugi presses further, asking whether if their ability to communicate in Japanese is also a product of those techniques. Maru confirms that it is. The twins' curse techniques are not just combat tools, they are the foundation of everything that the Simurians have built since leaving their planet. When Surugi asks why the Rumelians cannot simply leave Japan and settle elsewhere, Maru explains that they refuse to abandon the cursed spirits they now know exist there. Having discovered Kalyans on Earth, the sacred beings that define their entire culture, leaving is no longer an option for them. Surugi tracks the conversation to its real purpose. He has learned about Yuka's illness and her intention to stake her life on a binding vow to win the duel against Dabura. He asks Maru to take the Simurians and leave Earth so that Yuka does not have to die in a fight that she cannot win. Maru refuses. The Naonax took nearly 2 years to reach Earth from Simuria. His people lived in constant fear of drifting endlessly through the void of space. They have no home to go back to and no guarantee of finding another planet. With neither side willing to yield, both older brothers draw their weapons as the plane carrying Yuka flies overhead. Surugi demands that the Simurians leave. Maru refuses as their duel begins. Aboard the plane, Yuka's condition has deteriorated badly. Her vision is blurring, her head aches, and Mino has to offer her a wheelchair. When Mino checks in on her during the flight, Yuka's failing eyesight causes her to mistake him for Surugi. She scolds him for coming, saying she did not want her older brother to see her in such a pitiful state. Mino breaks down in tears, clasping her hand and apologizing repeatedly. In Tokyo, Dabura is greeted by an elderly Ui, now head of the new shadow style, surrounded by children and crows. Ui thanks Dabura for reminding humanity what real power looks like, noting that the decades of peace since Sukuna's defeat had dulled the world's understanding of true violence. Then the cargo hold of Yuka's plane opens. She falls from the aircraft, her wheelchair shattering as she plummets towards the ground. Through her tears, she changes her childhood wish. She no longer wants to be reborn as an older sister. She would rather come back as a little sister so long as her brother could still be Surugi. Yuka lands before Dabura, apologizes, raises her hands and chants, "With this treasure I summon." She dives into the shadows as the 8-handled, sword-divergent Sila Divine General Mahoraga erupts back into the inhuman Makyo for the first time in 68 years. The 10 Shadows technique is forbidden under the Gojo clan, and Yuka was only permitted a limited version of it, but Mahoraga's only viable combat use is through an exorcism ritual that locks both summoner and target into a fight to the death. Yuka enters suspended animation. The ritual can now only end if Dabura dies or Mahoraga is destroyed, and either outcome will kill Yuka as well. Dabura bombards Mahoraga with beams of light, impaling it from every direction. He stands atop the light beams looking down at the Shikigami. Then Mahoraga shatters the light, piercing its head, and the wheel above it begins to turn, adapting to an extraterrestrial curse technique for the first time in its existence. Chapter 16 then kicks off with Mahoraga and Dabura clashing across the ruins of Tokyo. The parallel battle between Surugi and Maru escalates. Surugi's heavenly restriction grants him extraordinary physical ability but zero cursed energy. He compensates by channeling the cursed energy stored in Honoyagi, his cursed tool that never runs out of fuel. He lands a clean slash across Maru's face and uses a wave of fire to obscure his vision before following up with a devastating combination. Tsurugi proposes a compromise. Dabura alone leaves Earth. If a curse technique's range cannot extend beyond the planet, then Dabura's departure would nullify Yuka's exorcism ritual and let her survive. Maru shuts it down. Dabura cannot return to Simuria because of the conditions tied to his sister's death curse. With no compromise possible, Surugi challenges Maru to a Deskunte-style duel, wagering that if he wins, the Simurians must leave. Maru's third eye scolds him for his failure as a warrior, and he accepts the challenge, unlocking his second curse technique, Chaos. It is revealed that the twins' curse techniques are Chaos and Harmony. Chapter 17 flashes back to reveal that Yuka and Surugi's father, Iori Okkotsu, disappeared shortly after Yuka was born. Surugi secretly learned from Gojo clan members that his father was troubled by how weak he believed that the current generation of sorcerers had become. A maid witnessed Iori confronting a hooded man, later implied to be Yuji Itadori, who told him it doesn't matter. Surugi concluded that his father's disappearance was tied to his children being born with cursed techniques. In the present, Maru's chaos technique wreaks havoc. Gravity reverses, the natural order collapses, and Surugi is flung through the air repeatedly. He manages to disarm both of them in a mid-air sequence, but Maru overwhelms him, pushing Surugi to the point of death. Just when it seems over, an unexpected ally emerges. Rika, Yuta Okkotsu's cursed spirit, manifests through the ring and merges with Surugi, draping over his head. Surugi blitzes Maru with a punch that smashes him into a building despite his block. The ring is a curse tool containing Yuta's immense cursed energy and Rika's will. She is mouthy, violent, and she is absolutely thrilled to be in a fight again. With Rika's power amplifying his strikes, Surugi goes on the offensive. He leaps between floating debris in zero gravity, smashes concrete over Maru's head, headbutts him point blank, and launches him through a pond with a single punch. Maru's mental disorientation attacks through his third eye are completely ineffective against the ring's power. Surugi apologizes and tells Maru that he will use any means necessary to win. Maru, equally desperate, responds that he does not need to apologize because he feels exactly the same. In Tokyo, the Dabura and Mahoraga fight reaches a critical point. Mahoraga fully adapts to Dabura's light technique, shattering his beams by flexing its body. It appears beside Dabura and extends the Sword of Extermination. As the beatdown intensifies, Dabura has a revelation. He remembers Jura's final request and finally understands what it means to be a warrior. Not someone who fights because they want to or simply because they can, but someone who fights because they have to for the sake of others. With this realization, Dabura catches the Sword of Extermination with his bare hand and crushes it. His curse techniques have been rendered useless by Mahoraga's adaptation, so his only option is to push his physical strength and speed to their absolute limits. He vows to Jura that he will become a true warrior as he tears across the battlefield at sublight speed. Chapter 19 sees Dabura figure out how positive cursed energy works, essentially discovering reverse curse technique in real time. He applies it to his light technique, creating a curse technique reversal. His beams of murderous light become spheres of darkness, a gravitational mass that functions like a black hole. Dabura plans to kill Mahoraga in a single strike before it can adapt again. Meanwhile, Yuji Itadori finally enters the picture. He has been hiding in the shadows, staying out of the Jujutsu world entirely. He uses blood manipulation to intervene in a confrontation between human sorcerers and Rumelians, firing guided threads of blood that disarm everyone involved. When Mino outs him, Yuji fires a piercing blood that grazes his cheek and delivers a cold statement about not caring about the conflict. He says he will handle any cursed spirits that escape Tokyo, and if Yuka loses, he will clean up the mess afterwards. Chapter 20 of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo is absolute chaos. Osuki, the hot-headed Rumelian, jumps from a building with an axe and swings at Yuji. Yuji catches the weapon with one hand, no-sells it completely, and then he hits Osuki with a casual black flash that knocks him out cold. Osuki notices something before losing unconscious. Yuji's aura resembles that of a Kalyan. On the other battlefield, Surugi is still wearing Rika's mask and overwhelming Maru when massive cursed spirits begin flooding out of buildings, migrating in fear of Dabura's power. Surugi pulls Maki's soul liberation katana out of Rika's shadow storage. It's the same sword that Mai forged for their grandmother. This blade ignores physical resistance and it can strike the soul directly, but its full power can only be unlocked by someone whose eyes can perceive the souls of inorganic objects. Surugi has to learn the same lesson that his grandmother once did. With Rika's encouragement, he manages it. He then makes a binding vow, releasing Rika's power in exchange for a momentary surge of speed beyond anything he has shown before. In a single sword blitz, he defeats Maru. Yuji responds to the flood of cursed spirits pouring out of the city by firing a Dismantle. Not a normal one, as this one tears through entire buildings, and it is described as larger than anything Sukuna ever produced. The resulting explosion is close to nuclear in scale. Yuji at his peak has surpassed both Gojo and Sukuna. The prediction that his sensei Gojo made about the new generation exceeding special grade has become a reality, and the implications go deeper. Osuki identified Yuji's aura as Kalyan-like. Since Yuji has become something closer to a cursed object himself, immortal and no longer fully human, he may be the key to resolving the entire conflict between humans and Simurians. The Rumelian tribe revere Kalyans as sacred beings who granted them their power. If Yuji exists as something that registers as a Kalyan to their senses, then he could possibly bridge the gap between both civilizations. It mirrors what happened with Master Tengen in the original Jujutsu Kaisen series, who became close to a cursed spirit after the failed merger and was subsequently revered by the Star religious group. Chapter 21 begins with the conclusion of the Maki flashback from Chapter 1, where an elderly Maki tearfully admits to Surugi that no Not a single day passes without her wondering whether if Mai truly needed to die for her to become strong, warning him not to sacrifice the people closest to him in pursuit of power. This directly informs the climax of Surugi and Maru's duel, as we learn that Surugi deliberately held back his final swing and took a lethal blow instead, telling Maru he doesn't know why, but that killing his friend felt like the wrong path forward, and that he is only 17 years old and doesn't have all the answers. Maru breaks down as the weight of the situation hits him, acknowledging that these Simurians are displacing people who are already living on Earth, doing the same thing that the Desconte did to them, and he begs for anyone to help him figure out what to do. Then suddenly the spirit of Rika arrives before him and guides him towards a solution. Meanwhile, Dabura sees the Naunax mothership moving overhead and is inspired by its concealment barrier in order to create his very own, as he clasps his hands together and activates a domain expansion just as Mahoraga's wheel begins spinning wildly, adapting not only to Dabura's techniques but to his very existence. We then cut to the Naunax, where Maru's harmony technique has identified and summoned Yuji Itadori as Earth's representative. Yuji casually reveals that Todo gave him the full rundown on these Simurians, confirming their friendship is still intact after 68 years. Maru proposes combining Yuta's cursed energy from the ring, along with the Muru ore of the mothership and an Earthling's technique in order to create a world where cursed spirits are no longer born, a plan that fulfills the lifelong dreams of both Yuki and Chozo. Yuji pulls out the soul book that Chozo entrusted to him and agrees without hesitation. Maru then leads Yuji into the space where souls pass through upon death, revealing the third key his technique selected. We see Mahito, who has been trapped in limbo for 68 years out of pure spite, refusing to pass on before Yuji died first. Mahito is initially ecstatic to see Yuji, assuming that he has finally died, but when he realizes Yuji is very much alive, the terror sets in instantly as he collapses and scrambles beneath them. Maru looks down and simply says it is time to begin. Now, as I'm making this video, we do have the spoilers for chapter 22, and this chapter picks up right where chapter 21 left off, with Yuji and Maru standing over a terrified Mahito as they discuss how to proceed with the plan. Yuji confirms his understanding of the mechanics. Maru will use Mahito's idol transfiguration, amplified by the Muru ore and the cursed energy stored in Yuta's ring, in order to reshape the souls of Japanese people so that cursed energy no longer leaks from them, preventing cursed spirits from ever being born in the first place. The catch is that Mahito will not cooperate willingly, so Yuji volunteers to subdue him personally. What follows is a complete demolition. Mahito activates idol transfiguration and attempts to launch his domain expansion, but Yuji severs his fingers and tongue before he can even form the hand sign. He then cleaves Mahito and the entire surrounding environment into cubes with shrine in a single motion, mirroring the exact way that Sukuna had dismantled Nanako decades earlier. Maru takes what remains of Mahito's head and converts him into a voodoo doll, completing the final component of the ritual alongside the Muru ore, Yuta's ring, and Yuki's soul book. With everything assembled, Yuji and Maru talk through the two options for eliminating cursed spirits. So removing cursed energy from all Japanese people entirely, or turning everyone into sorcerers so that their energy circulates properly and stops leaking. Maru rejects option 2 because it would simply replace cursed spirit attacks with cursed user violence, and it would potentially produce more heavenly restriction types like Toji with no guarantee that they would use their gifts for good. They settle on option 1, removing cursed energy from both Japanese and Simurian people in order to avoid creating a power imbalance. Yuji agrees but does not sugarcoat what they are about to do, calling it a sin because they are stripping away future potential and altering people's bodies without consent, as he also acknowledges that cursed energy could have one day become humanity's final energy resource. He accepts the burden that comes with getting rid of cursed energy, reasoning that he will live for at least another 300 years and he can personally bear the punishment if it turns out to be a mistake. Maru clarifies that he will only affect non-sorcerers and future generations, leaving current sorcerers and Simurians untouched. But just as they prepare to move forward, Yuji drops a bomb bombshell. Even after removing cursed energy from Japanese people, cursed spirits will probably still be born. This leaves Maru stunned as chapter 22 ends. So yeah, 22 chapters in Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo has established itself as something genuinely special. It has built an entirely new cast with their own motivations, traumas, and ideologies, while weaving in the legacy of the original series in ways that feel earned rather than cheap. Yuka and Tsurugi carry the Okkotsu bloodline without being carbon copies of Yuta and Maki. Maru and Cross are compelling mirrors of each other, as they were both shaped by the same grief but arrived at opposite conclusions. Then we have Dabura, who genuinely could be one of the strongest characters that we have ever seen in the franchise. And Yuji Itadori, the man who was never given a proper ending in the original series, he is returned as something beyond what anyone could have expected. I hope that this video has helped to convince you to pick up Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. The series should be wrapping up within the next few weeks, so there is no better time than now to get into Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. If you enjoyed this comprehensive retrospective of the series, then do subscribe and stick around, as I'll be covering the remaining chapters of the series, and let me know all of your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of the series so far? Are you enjoying the new cast of characters? And do you think Yuji is going to step up against Dabura? Lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.